Hello and welcome to the WD18 podcast. It's episode number 8. It's great to be back. It's been a while, but the international break gives us the opportunity to review the last few games that Watford have played. We go into this international break on the back of two 3-2 wins, and there's no better place to start really, Sam, than the commentary game. But before we get into that, how are you doing, mate? How have you been?
Yeah, I'm alright. It's been a bit stressful being back at school, with A-levels. We're not sure if we're sitting them, but it's been good. Watford playing twice a week. I suppose that's pretty much the main advantage of being in the Championship, that, we get to watch them literally every 3 days at the moment. It's been really enjoyable. The games have been really enjoyable, even though some of them have been a bit frustrating. But yeah, no, how's it being back at the Vic? Was it weird with it all, with no fans there?
Yeah, so I was back on Saturday. Obviously, I was on Hive Live Extra at the weekend, which was great. It was great to be back at the Vic, but it's just so different to having fans in there. Obviously, when you haven't got a packed Vicarage Road, it's going to be a completely different atmosphere.
Can you imagine if fans were there, though, for those 3-2 wins, particularly the last minute against Stoke, under the lights? It would have been bouncing.
But it was obviously a big win on Saturday, Sam. We came from behind. We didn't come behind against Stoke, but we got pegged back and we came back again this time round. It was, a 5-goal half. The first half was pretty dull in all fairness, and then it really came to life in the second half. A big win for Watford. It takes us up to second in the league, which is massive.
Yeah, it's such an important win. I in our preview, I think before the Stoke game, I said following the two poor performances, I think it's fair to say, against Wycombe and Barnsley, what I kind of wanted to see on these players, is how are they going to respond to setbacks in this league? Because the amount of games that you're playing, you need to have responses straight away. And I was so happy with the two responses, because while they weren't kind of the best we've seen out of them, probably maybe not a 7 or an 8 out of 10, but the character shown to come back in those games and get massive 3 points, just so important.
Do you know what's really interesting, Sam, is that if we actually compare this season to the promotion season under Jokanovic, 2014-15, 11 games played, 6 wins, 3 draws, 2 losses, the exact same record as this season under Vladimir Ivic.
Oh, only says good things. Hopefully we're not going to have 4 managers at this point, but
Yeah. Well, I think, to be fair to Vladimir Ivic, and we'll give him some praise now, because I think it's been well documented. He came into a difficult situation at Watford. Players coming in, players coming out, especially in the times we're living in at the moment. He had a shortened pre-season, no fans in the stadium. Everything is really stacked against him. He's come into a relegated side. And if you had said at the start of the season we'd played 11 games, we're on 21 points, we're second in the league, regardless of how we've actually played over that period, you've got to be happy with that, surely, Sam?
What's very different is that it's been a long time since we've had a manager with a proper identity, perhaps since Marco Silva, when he had that high intensity attacking football. You can see what Ivic is trying to do, and injuries or not, he's always trying to implement his philosophy. The fullbacks are so important to him, the midfielders are so important to him, and when everyone's back from injury, and I include Adam Messina in that, I think that's the only time we're going to see Ivic ball in full flow. So I mean, I'm so happy with what he's doing, and yeah, just the fact that we've got an actual philosophy now is so pleasing. What
was the big standouts for you on Saturday, Sam? Obviously, the characters come from behind and win, especially after that couple of minutes where obviously Coventry got the 2 goals, and truce to Con with the best reply you can have, scoring literally at the other end within a couple of minutes. And then Ismail obviously stepping up. I was surprised Troy didn't take it, but we'll probably talk about that a little bit later on in the pod. What was the standouts for you on Saturday? Was it the performance, or was it more the mentality that we managed to come back from a losing position?
I think it was a bit of both, because aside from that 10-minute crazy spell where there were all 5 goals, after that there was still about 12-15 minutes to play, including stoppage time, and I thought we saw the game out really, really well. We kept the ball around the corner. We kept the ball really, really well. Capu was intercepting passes from them, and they didn't really have any clear-cut opportunities after that. So I thought we saw the game out really, really well. But that all stems from the mentality that Ivic has installed in them, and that's going to be so important later on in the season, where we are going to have more setbacks, perhaps worse ones than we did against Coventry and Barnsley, because it is still such early days, and there's going to be times where perhaps we drop out the automatic promotion spots or move from top of the league down or something. But it's going to be so important for these players to respond, and they've shown that in the last week or so, how they're going to respond to situations.
Yeah, I think exactly, especially with the week before as well, Sam. We mentioned Bournemouth, Wycombe, Barnsley, how difficult that week was, and I remember we did a match preview preview looking ahead to the Stoke game, was it? And
Yeah,
we touched upon it, and we said, this is a really big couple of games for Watford, because if we go into the international break on the back of 2 draws or 2 losses, then you're really starting to question whether we've got maybe the mentality for one, but maybe the ability to get, we have the ability to get out, but the mentality more to get out of this league. But the manner in which actually we've managed to win these 2 games, as I said multiple times, we haven't played our best football, but we've had, there's been passages in both games where we've played some really good stuff, and we're actually showing a bit more going forward, I think, particularly in the second half against Coventry. The way we were running in behind, that's the frustration for me, because Ismaila has so much pace, Andre pace, we've got, and obviously JP as well. We've got a lot of attacking quality going forward, but we're actually utilising our best players' ability in a weird way, because I just don't think we've done that enough in the previous games.
I think that's bang on, but I mean, that's not necessarily Ivic's fault. Simply because of the amount of injuries we've had. But, going back to the mentality, I mean, there's no doubt that we've got the best team on paper in the league. But again, that's only on paper, and that doesn't guarantee anything, particularly in a league like the Championship and English football. But if we can apply our mentality, then there's absolutely no reason why we can't go up this year. Like, seriously, I can't see why we can't blow teams away every single week if players apply themselves properly. But it's just so pleasing, the fact that, we said that we haven't had a consistently good performance this season. Like, there's been elements in games where we've been like, wow, this is becoming good now, but then it's kind of dropped out on and off. But the fact that we're second in the league, I mean, I say somehow at this point we're second in the league, it's just how promising are things going to be when eventually everyone is fully fit. Hughesy's back, Gray is fully back, and Deeney's fully back, and that's, I think, when we're going to be able to properly judge this Watford side.
And that's including that week where we did drop 7 points. So could you imagine if we had held on to just one of those games? I mean, we'd be top of the league. Well, we would be top of the league over Reading. Some interesting stats for you here, Sam. Our home record is the best in the Championship. 16 points out of 6 games. In the last 8 games, we've got 14 points. Only Norwich, Middlesbrough and Stoke have, Stoke have the same 14, but Norwich and Middlesbrough have better. Our defence, it was before the last 2 games the best in the league, but now it's dropped to 5th. Has defensively been the biggest encouragement, particularly after last season? We really did struggle at the back, and we've had Kabasele, Cathcart stick around with the addition of Troost-Ekong, Ben Wilmot's coming through as well. For you, is that the major positive out of the 11 games so far?
Yeah, I would 100% say that. I mean, I'd say with exception of the way that we've defended some set pieces and the Stoke game, I think we've consistently looked pretty solid at the back and not really looking like conceding. There was a couple of times against Coventry where, Kabasele made a fantastic last-ditch tackle. But except for that, their goals are free goal and a fantastic goal for Championship level for a team like Coventry. But except for that, we've been pretty solid at the back. We kept something like 4 or 5 clean sheets. That's pretty much unheard of for a Watford side at this stage in the season. So, I mean, Ivic, I think, has recognised, perhaps he, was watching us last season and realised that the foundations of this team needed changing, because if we're going to go forward and attack teams with the attacking ability we have to have that defensive security, and particularly William Troost-Ekong and Kiko stepped up and Gaki are on the bench, and it's just been so good at the back, I think.
Is this what he needs to consider maybe going forward? Because I think people have swayed between whether Ivic needs to move away from this formation or stick with it. And I think actually the big talking point this season has been, are we going to see his preferred 4-3-3? He's made it pretty clear that he's playing this formation because of the players he's got at his disposal. He hasn't got a natural left back for starters, and he feels this formation gets the best out of this squad. Number one, Sam, do you agree with that? And number two, could you see him moving away from this formation?
Yeah, I think currently with the players he's got available to him, I would say this is the best formation. I can't really see who'd play left back. Maybe Kiko or Sema even could play there, but I wouldn't want to take the risk with that. So I'd say currently the 5 at the back is probably the best formation he's got for himself. But I do think that eventually when Messina's back, I think he will switch to the 4. I think he really wants to switch to the 4. He kind of referenced that in his press conferences, I think, as well. So I think it's a matter of time before we see that. But I think when did he say Messina will be back? Like February or something?
Yeah, it's an Achilles injury. Now people are saying we'd maybe get him for January, but I think it's going to be February, because I think with Achilles they're very easy. It's similar to hamstring injuries. You can rupture them again quite easily. So I think they're going to be very cautious with him. And I think particularly with the 5-3-2 working relatively well at the moment, I guess there isn't a rush to bring him back in. I think for me, it's very important the midfielders we pick. I thought we looked a lot better with Garner in the team just because he's a bit more progressive going forwards. And that's nothing against Chalobah, but I think you can't play Chalobah and Capoue in the same team just because that is quite defensive, I think. This is a bit of a frustration for me, is Cleverley often drifts out to the left-hand side, which is clearly worked upon because every single game he does it. Like, Ken will often be on the left, but Cleverley will often get in that inside channel between the striker and the left wing-back, which, I don't know, I don't think gets the best out of him. But for you, Sam, that midfield three, it's, again, been discussed quite heavily. What is the midfield three for you, which is the best? Which one would it be? You know what, if every player was fit, we're playing a 5-3-2, what would be your midfield three?
Do you know what? That's such a hard question because I think it's fair to say that the two who have to start would be Capoue in that holding role and Will Hughes, because I think we've missed Will Hughes so much. You know, even against Stoke, the 2 or 3 minutes he was on, he made an impact. You know, he brought the ball forward and he manages to snap into those tackles around the pitch. It very much depends on the sort of game, because in you're going to have tough games where teams are going to attack you. Your Bristol City aways in a few weeks, Bournemouth away at some point in the season. And I think that's sort of a game perhaps where I'd play Chalobah, actually. I know he's got some stick from fans, but I think what he does, at times he does very well, particularly next to Capoue. In games, where I think we'd be more on the front foot, I'd play James Garner or maybe Domingos Quina, that creative kind of source. And James Garner, I kind of think's got a bit of both, and I think he's perfect for the games such as Coventry or Wycombe's kind of thing. But I think it speaks of how blessed we are as Watford fans at the moment with the squad depth that we've got, particularly in that midfield area where I think we have lacked in the last few years. Domingos Quina against Stoke didn't even make it on the bench, and he's meant to be our midfield star boy, and it just speaks of the quality we've got in the squad at the moment.
Do you think maybe there's a part of Ivic which is like, well, Keane probably is one of our most creative midfielders, but can we rely on him to produce a 7 out of 10 or an 8 out of 10 each week? Cleverley, you know what you're getting from Cleverley. Hard-working, covers so much ground, gets stuck in, leader as well. Do you think that's definitely something he's considering with his team at the moment?
Yeah, 100%. I think Watford fans have really, particularly on social media, scapegoated Cleverley wrongly. I think what he brings to this team, as you said, is hard work, attitude, and, he gets his foot stuck in. And he knows the Championship from his time with us earlier on. And I think that kind of reflects onto the rest of the team when you've got one person who's, trying to get the ball moving and trying to bring the ball forward, which he has been doing. It kind of has an impact on everyone around him. And I think that's what Ivic is considering, because, while Quina is capable of putting a 9 or a 10 out of 10, more often than not, he can still put in, a 4 or a 5 out of 10. But with Cleverley, you're consistently getting your 7s and 8s. So I think that is what Ivic is considering, particularly in the Championship where, as I said already, you need consistency.
Ismaila back on the score sheet at the weekend, which is great. I tell you what, we discussed the penalty situation now. Obviously, Watford did win 3-2 against Coventry City, if you didn't know already. The winning goal was scored by Ismaila Sarr from the spot. But obviously, the context surrounding that was Troy Deeney was on the pitch, his 400th appearance. It seemed, well, from what Troy was saying after the game, each player knows their roles and responsibilities. Ivic said Sarr is the designated penalty taker for this game. Which I'd imagine JP was the designated penalty taker for the Stoke game. Your thoughts on that, Sam? Did you think that was a sign of intent of Vladimir Ivic, or did you think, I would have liked Troy to take this?
I think there's a bit of both with me, but while I would have loved to see Troy get a goal on such a sentimental occasion for himself, I think a lot of Watford fans have questioned in the past whether Troy thinks he's bigger than the club. And the fact is, the club is bigger than Troy Deeney, and the club needs to take priority. And the fact that Ivic managed to maintain, his authority over every situation on the pitch, from penalties, from sentimental situations, I think just shows, the stamp he's got on this Watford team. And the fact that Deeney, someone who's been at the club for 10, 11 years now, knows that, this is like part of something bigger. So I am actually really happy that Sarr got the penalty, while I am a bit upset that Deeney wasn't able to put one away on his 400th appearance.
I think also, Sam, especially after the summer with Troy being linked with a move away, I always, it's always interesting when a player does stay on, whether they wanted to or not. It's very easy for players to kick their toys out the pram, and Troy would never be one of those players. We know that. I don't think he'd ever do that, even if he stayed at Watford for the rest of his career and didn't get his move. He'd never ever do that. I thought Capoue, that might have happened, but clearly he's really focused, which some would say, well, how can you be if you put in a transfer request? But I believe he had every right to look for a move away, especially after what he's done at Watford for the last 5 years. I mean, he's probably one of the best midfielders we've had at this football club. So he deserved to be talking, I think, with the move away, rightly or wrongly. Let us know your thoughts on that as well. What do you think Troy can offer to us till at least January, till the next transfer window? I think he'll probably stay till the end of the season, but for you, how big could he be? Because I think we've lacked a little bit of a talisman up front. I think we've looked a little bit experienced going forward with Sarr and João Pedro, who don't know the league. We know that. Obviously, Troy has been there under Zola, Sonino, Jukanovic, 20 goals plus in 3 seasons back-to-back. He's been promoted at the Championship. Does he go into the lineup for you? Because he looks in great shape as well.
Yeah, I mean, in terms of what you said he offers to the team, I think you hit the nail on the head. He brings experience. He's in really, really good shape. And he kind of offers that plan B. I wouldn't really say that he goes straight into the team. Because I know while we've seen him for about, 10 minutes overall this season, he hasn't really... I don't think he's still going to be that player who's going to make the runs into the box that Paritza did and Andre's done, which I think is so important to the way Ivic wants to play. But he offers that plan B. Just a question for you as well, though, is where does this leave Glenn Murray? Because I think we signed Murray with the thought that Deeney was going to leave. And Murray could be that plan B option. But, what would you do about Murray now?
I honestly thought, Sam, that when we signed Glenn Murray, that was an indication that Troy was leaving. But I think we all thought he was going to move to West Brom if it was going to be any club because of his links to the Midlands, playing in the Premier League again. But I don't know where Glenn Murray really fits into the squad now, because realistically, let's just say the top two were Deeney and Gray who start, you've still then got Sarr, you've still got Pedro, Paritza, who's coming back obviously after that injury. Glenn Murray isn't not needed because we'll need him for like the FA Cup, etc. We'll need him in the squad, but I'm surprised he joined if he knew this was going to be the situation. He left Brighton, a Premier League club, where he probably wouldn't have played much anyway, but he's come to Watford probably expecting a bit more game time, and he hasn't got that so far. Realistically, you have to have a big squad. That's an absolute must in the Championship, especially with the amount of games, the cup competitions. But I'm not sure where this leaves Glenn Murray, to be honest with you, mate. What do you think? Are you maybe of the opinion just to keep him on, or do you think he could be maybe let go soon?
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't go as far as saying we would terminate his loan because a couple
like
of
his career, mate.
Yeah. No, literally, he knocks on the door and goes, "Mr. Manager, I want to play in this game." No, but I wouldn't. I mean, bear in mind that Andre's just coming back from injury, Troy's as well, Paritza will be as well, and JP's young. It's only 1 or 2 injuries away. I know it's hypothetically speaking until we are talking about Murray being back in contention. Obviously, we don't exactly... I think the club, when they signed him, probably did think Troy was leaving. Obviously, we don't know what happens behind the scenes. I know he was angling for a move. Perhaps something fell through and he was happy to get his head down at Watford. But yeah, I can't really see how he'd be involved in the immediate future.
That's a really interesting one with Glenn. I'm surprised that he would join if he knew this situation. I think.
Yeah.
But wasn't that before Paritza came in though? Or was it very soon after?
I can't remember. It all kind of happened very quickly in the summer, like in terms of players joining. So I can't remember the exact order, but. I really like the look of Paritza as well. I know you said the top 2 are Deeney and Gray, but I really wouldn't write him off. I know he played for, 60, 70 minutes against Bournemouth, and I thought his movement was really good. He held the ball up well, and a really, really tidy finish as well. So I really wouldn't write him off at this point.
Sam, just looking at some of the standout players so far, we're looking at the whole season, particularly the last few games since the last international break. I'm going to dedicate this section to the Ken Sema Appreciation Society.
Yeah.
We're recruiting new members every single day. You can join us. Sam and I are massive fans of Ken. He's come in since obviously he was on loan at Udinese last season. I was a little bit concerned, Sam, when we let Estupinian go, rightly or wrongly. Well, I think rightly because of the money we got for him, and also he didn't want to be here. But he was obviously he's a quality player. He's playing in La Liga for Villarreal. But I was worried when he left whether we'd be able to replace him. But Ken Sema, I don't think it's over the top to say he's probably been our player of the season so far.
100%. I mean, in my opinion, he's the definition of hard work. You know, he's exactly what. He's a manager's dream. He wants to play for Watford. He's loved by the fans. I think he loves the fans as well. There's kind of a mutual thing now. I know we haven't seen him play, but you can just tell by his social media posts and his interviews that he knows the fans absolutely adore him.
We are back.
Oh, that is like, that's going to be on Twitter for years now. Emma hit the nail on the head on Hive Live Extra with you that, you know, Watford fans are rapidly becoming not just Watford supporters, but a Ken Sema Appreciation Society. I mean, you know, you said that Estepinian didn't really want to be here, and it just seems that, you know, Ken absolutely loves the club, and you know, he seems to have changed as well. That parts of his game, I know we saw him briefly under Javi Gracia, that game away at Bournemouth, but his game just seems to have evolved a bit. You know, since when did, you know, going back to the FIFA analogy, since when did he have 5-star skill moves? Like, seriously. You know,
mate, some of the skills he's whipping out, that one against Stoke where it was like a little drag back.
Yeah, I mean, do you remember the Igalo scoop? The Ken Sema drag backs quickly becoming that.
Oh,
as iconic.
Now all I'm waiting for is someone to release a T-shirt with Ken Sema's face
love
on
it.
and
We need
crown on the top as
well.
Yeah,
if Watford are listening to this, what we need is a compilation of Ken Sema drag backs. That's all we want.
I agree, and a bit of merch in the club shop as well. I think it's just needed, isn't it? It's just needed.
Exactly.
But he's been brilliant so far this season.
Yeah.
Who would be, if we're talking top three?
Yeah.
Sema top. Who would be your other two? I think Kiko's probably got to be in contention.
Yeah, Kiko has to be up there. I mean, it's a toss-up between Kiko and Ngakia because they've played half each or so, and they've both been very good. They both do their jobs. You know, they both do different things, but they've both done it brilliantly. I think Kiko's I think he's feeling the pressure from Ngakia, and that's really, really upped his performances. You know, there's been a couple of questionable moments, particularly against Coventry when he got booked and that guy absolutely rinsed him and he got taken off eventually because he would have been sent off, like, let's be real.
It was interesting with Kiko because if you actually looked at his positioning, Sema was a lot higher up. And a lot of the time they were telling Kiko to push forward a little bit more. And he was just a bit cautious, I thought, on Saturday. I think the yellow card, he got a yellow card, didn't he? I don't think that helped him. And then it kind of just set him back a little bit. And it wasn't the free-flowing Kiko that we're used to where he bombs forward, makes the overlapping runs. And I think to be fair to Coventry, I forgot who the player was on the left-hand side, but he pinned him back. And that's the only problem with this system, I think, is if you have a left winger who does cause the right wing back problems, because our wing backs are so crucial for our attacking play, it does make us a little bit unbalanced, and I think Kiko will obviously know that. And when Ngakia came on, we looked a lot more bright. And actually, that substitution, to be fair to Ivic, you know, that really did help us, I thought, on Saturday.
Sorry, just going back to Ivic again, something we haven't seen, like particularly from, you know, something that Nigel Pearson lacked and Javi and Kike lacked as well, was that his substitutions always seem to be the right ones at the right time as well. You know, it's something he obviously, I think, plans beforehand with the match scenarios, but, you know, most of his subs have had big impacts on games. Just going back to your question, though, about who the players of the season have been, so I think we said Kiko and Ngakia. I'd also go as far as saying Etienne Capoue. I know he's only played 4 or 5 games, but the impact he's had on the team, on the players around him as well, it's just, you know, he's up there as, I think, one of the, you know, most interceptions in the league already as well, and long passes, and he's so important to the way that Ivic wants to play with switching the ball as well. So I'd say he's up there as well, Capoue.
So we're going top 3, King Ken top.
Yeah.
Seconds, are we going Kiko?
Yeah, we'll
or
go
are we going
Kiko
Foster?
second.
Foster.
Oh, I'd say there's been, like, Foster, while he's been unbelievable, particularly in that Wickham game, and there's just been a couple of times where it kind of let him down a bit. I'd say he's top 5 easily, and I think we're being a bit harsh on João Pedro as well, not putting him up in the top 3.
It's difficult, isn't it?
Yeah, it is very hard. But, you know, again, it just speaks volumes, the fact that, you know, we're looking at this top 5, and maybe with the exception of Ken, I'd say none of Kiko, Capoue or Foster, we haven't seen their best yet. And when we see their best, we are going to be such a threat in this league.
Do let us know your top 3 at WD18 fans on Twitter and Instagram. so to wrap up the pods, we've got a few questions sent in from you guys. Thank you to everyone who sent a question in. If you'd like to get involved with the podcast and our videos, then please do follow us on Instagram and Twitter at WD18fans. Sam, let's fire away. First question.
So this one is from Ross_Gates. And okay, so say we stay with the three up front, the left wing, striker and the right wing. What do you think is the best front three?
Ooh, so are we talking a 5-2-3?
Yeah, or 4-3-3.
Or 4-3-3. I think if we were going to play a front three, I would go with Sarr on the right. I'd go with... Oh, that's difficult because then Ken does well at left wing back.
The middle's the hard one. Yeah, because, so if it's 5, would you play Ken at wing back?
Yeah, I would play Ken at left wing back. I do think he would be better further forward though because he's brilliant. Okay, my front three would be Ismaila Sarr on the right hand side. I think if we're still playing 5 at the back, I'd have to go for probably João Pedro on the left, and probably start with Andre Gray down the middle.
Yeah, no, that's fair. I'd say it's a toss up between Paritza and Gray. I wouldn't say Deeney is necessarily in contention for me at the moment. If it's a 4-3-3, I wouldn't play Pedro and I'd play Sema on the left.
That's a difficult question, but I think the nearest formation to the one we have at the moment is a 5-2-3. And if we were going to say a front three now, I'd go Sarr, Gray, João Pedro, and keeps Ken Sema at left wing back. But as you said, if we went to a 4-3-3 and played Messina at left back or someone, then I would definitely put Ken Sema further up the pitch.
All right, so next question. So we've seen, Foster, while he's been unbelievable and love his YouTube channel as well, there has been a couple of moments, particularly in the Coventry game, where he's had a couple of shaky moments. Going back to the start of the season, if you remember Daniel Bachmann's performances in the Carabao Cup, do you think he is a good enough replacement when Ben sadly retires? That's from Tom Hunt.
That Oxford away game in the Cup, he was unbelievable. Like, in the penalty shootout, not only that, but in the game as well, he's pulling off some incredible saves. So I think if Ben did go on a poor run, I think Bachmann's sufficient backup, really. I don't know about you, Sam, but I think he's good enough to come in and do a job.
Yeah, I mean, I'd say I'm a bit more sceptical about him being the goalkeeper in the future. I mean, Pontus Dahlberg is having an absolutely unbelievable loan spell out. Do you know what club he's at?
BK Häcken in the Swedish league.
Yeah, so he seems to be making
really
wonder saves every week. So, I mean, he looks to be a really good talent for the future, but definitely Bachmann, as in the short term as a backup, I think is a really good option for us. Last question then, on the topic of, Watford managers, Vladimir Ivic, the current manager, what do you think he needs to change within himself? Because we've spoken about how well we've done at the moment, but do you think there's been a couple of times where he's been a bit stubborn maybe, or needed to change the formation and he hasn't?
Overall, I've been really impressed. I think he's done a brilliant job so far. I think we're only going to improve. It's another 2 weeks for him to really get to know the players because, as we said before, he didn't have a big pre-season. He was effectively learning about his squad on the job, and that's always difficult, especially after the relegated season as well. Like, he's come into... I can't reiterate that enough. He's come into literally one of the hardest situations. We're second in the league, 21 points. We've got one of the best defences in the league. I don't see how we can really complain at the moment. Yeah,
there's only been one time where I've been like, really, what are you doing? Which was, it might have been the Barnsley game where he brought on Chalobah. And when we were 1-0 down, and I was really questioning, why are we being so negative?
Or was it Wickham when he brought him at centre-half?
Yeah, it might have been. It was one of those. To be fair, I've got those games out of my mind now. I've moved on. But I can understand why some fans are frustrated by it. Like, I wouldn't say he's similar to Kike, but the football at times has been very negative. But I think we have to look at the bigger picture. We can't play, with our favours 4-3-3 formation, and if it sets up to win 1-0, and I mean, I don't think he'd be too pleased that we've conceded 4 goals in the last 2 games. I think he would have rather have won 1-0 than 3-2 on both occasions.
Do you think, though, Sam, that there's almost an expectation that people are saying with this whole Ivic ball situation and stuff, that we're almost expecting this free-flowing, like, tiki-taka? I'm not saying we shouldn't strive for that, but I think, we're going to go to games this season, I'm not being funny, the likes of Rotherham away, Millwall away, Luton away. We can, sometimes we've just got to be direct, we've got to be bullish, and we can't win in the perfect style every time. And if you had said to me, Sam, come the end of the season, we get promoted, but we won most of our games 1-0, I wouldn't be complaining. But I think there's definitely an expectation, maybe because of what they saw at Tel Aviv and what they saw at PAOK as well, that he probably plays a better brand of football. But ultimately, in the Championship, you can't always do that.
You know, I said this earlier on in the podcast, the fact this is the first time in a long time we've had a manager with a philosophy coming in. And, you know, it takes time for these managers to implement what they want. And we need to be patient. I do think it will take longer than one season as well. I know he's on a 1-year deal. But, you know, even if we don't go up, I think we're going in the right direction in terms of how he wants to play. And, you know, he's building for the future, I think. When Pep Guardiola came into Man City, I'm by no means comparing Ivic to Guardiola, although perhaps I should be at this point. But you know, it took Guardiola a good year and a half. It took Jurgen Klopp 4 or 5 years to build what he wanted with the philosophy. And, you know, I feel that we need to give Ivic time and be patient with it as a fan base.
Tell you what, Sam, that's the perfect way to wrap up. Thank you very much for joining me today. If you did enjoy the podcast, guys, then please do subscribe to us on YouTube, Spotify, SoundCloud, whichever is your audio provider. I think we're on pretty much every single one now. So if you could leave us a review as well, if you're listening on iTunes, that would be massively appreciated. We'll be back some more videos over the international break, looking ahead to what will be an incredibly busy Christmas period for Watford. The content will be coming on WD18. Thank you very much for listening, and we'll see you very soon.